It has come up.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. So I think we will get started so today is April 7th. It's the Middle Creek Project Committee meeting. And the scheduled time was 10:30, but we are starting 5 minutes late. So we'll get into the first item, Middle Creek Project Committee roll call and quorum. So
Bruno Sabate, District 2 Supervisor here.
Harry Lyons, Lake County Resource Conservation District here.
Mary Jo Hoskins, Middle Creek, what was it called?
Restoration Coalition.
Nice.
I just said it 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. Pawan Upadhyay, Lake County Water Resources Director. And we did receive a communication from Supervisor Crandall. He won't be able to join us today. So I think we do have a quorum, so I think we will proceed.
Indeed.
Consideration of item not appearing on the posted agenda.
Nothing.
I have nothing.
Okay. So we'll move to the next one, which is the board action. Approve minutes from February 3, 2025 Middle Creek Project Committee meetings. So I think you should have a meeting minutes already. Is there any correction changes?
I just wanted to comment, was this generated by artificial intelligence to some extent?
Yes, it is.
Because it has all the information, it's just not really in English. And I don't have any problem with that, but did anybody else notice how strange it was?
It's just unorganized, like in the language it's using?
Yeah, in the language it's using, there's some fragments and there's also some non sequiturs, but it has a lot more information than you would expect in the minute.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a matter of you have more information, but at the same time it takes a form that's a little foreign.
The county just released their AI policy. Is minute creation included in that policy for use of AI?
I haven't checked recently. It just came out.
It literally just came out.
Policy. Normally, this is a public meeting. Those watching can record it. It is being recorded. As you noted, AI is particularly inaccurate in some ways, so I don't know if I'd rely on it as a definitive record. I wouldn't.
Does the Brown Act have anything? Because that's what we have to comply with Brown Act, and providing minutes is part of Brown Act.
As long as they're accurate, so when you adopt the minutes, you will have reviewed them, and if they are inaccurate, you may correct them.
So it falls on you guys.
Well, I looked it over, and to me, that everything was correct.
It's just going to be harder for someone trying to find out what happened a public member of the public find out what happened at the meeting. It's going to be confusing.
Then you can certainly have someone take the minutes as opposed to an AI.
Or maybe just modify the AI
Start with
the
that
recording
as the first draft.
So it doesn't take, Lucy's doing the minutes, so she's not doing it from scratch, but she's listening to it and just updating it. So maybe it's more still efficient, useful, but more accurate.
So do we wish to burden Lucy with that? I don't know if it's worth eating up some time.
I did have a quick read through some for corrections and other things. That's why probably nothing is wrong as far as the date numbers and that thing goes. Okay. So I did a quick check on that.
Well, I'm fine with them.
I think as long as all the names of people, what they said is accurate.
And that was very good.
So the only thing that it would say here is item number 2. AI tools may inadvertently create public records or other content that lead to liability. In certain situations, AI systems may inadvertently create public records or outputs that can be misused or misinterpreted. For instance, an AI-powered note-taking app might mistranscribe a conversation or document, leading to the creation of inaccurate or incomplete records. These records could later be accessed by others, including public, potentially creating legal or reputational risks for the county. Additionally, AI-generated content may inadvertently include copyrighted material, potentially leading to copyright violations. Use caution when relying on AI for documentation or note-taking purposes. It doesn't say you can't. It just says use caution. Always verify the accuracy of any AI-generated outputs, especially if they are intended for public records or official documentation. Ensure that AI-generated content does not violate copyright laws or infringe on the intellectual property of others. I think that I'm perfectly fine with attempting to use it as long as there's a review process
I think we're the review.
And I think that there's a review process already happening at the
Yes.
staff level, whether it's yourself or Lucy or someone else, and then there's a review happening at the council or committee level. So I think that we have, in my opinion, security safeguards to ensure that we pay attention to what we're doing,
Yeah, and do keep in mind that when you adopt it, you are effectively
making it
saying,
officially a public record.
well, not only that, but you are saying that it is accurate to your discussion or what occurred at the prior meeting as far as decisions and conversation. So it behooves you to,
Yeah.
whether you use AI or not, to read the minutes.
Yeah, it was always the burden for you guys to review and approve,
Right.
whether it's human error or computer error. But
It's
now it's
just-
both.
It's just tough on a grammar professor, it's tough.
Yeah, my mother was an English teacher.
It's outright painful.
Yeah, my mother was an English teacher.
And I would recommend not using them in confidential meetings at all.
Okay, so I think it seems like everybody is okay with the meeting minutes. So
Yeah.
we approve the meeting minutes from February 3, 2025.
And I'm going to add something on top of that. It is possible to mistakenly approve meeting minutes that are not 100% accurate. We do have video recordings of these meetings as well. If we ever need to say, oops, we didn't catch that in reading through the meeting minutes, here is what was said. We have another documented portion of this meeting. So just putting it out there in case that's a way to help us in our process. I don't know if that's legally sound, but I think that we have additional documents that are made through this process because we do record these meetings.
Yes. Okay.
And they're posted on the YouTube, not the Agenda Center, to be clear, for the videos.
True. But they are linked through our website in order to find those videos.
Within the YouTube, not through the Agenda Center, yeah.
Okay, so with that said, I think probably we approve the meeting minutes. Yes. Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
So do you need to say your name when you're doing motions and then seconding for AI?
Motion by Bruno Sabatier, second by Dr. Velasquez.
Okay.
Unanimously passed.
Thank you for the follow-up.
Okay, so the fourth item we have is the project area parcel acquisition. So updates and the next step for the willing sellers. So I think last couple of meetings, I think I got this from the committee here that we need to provide an update on where we stand. So of all the parcels we need, so that's the current status as of today. So these are based on the individuals, not actually the parcels. So when it says 4, it might be like 10 parcels within that.
Gotcha.
So 4 people right now, we are in the process. We are making the approval of just compensation document, and we will come to the Board of Supervisor for their approval of just compensation, and it's almost ready to be presented for the 4 property owners. The status of 6-1 is re-engaging with property owners. That's 6 of them, which includes whether they have been contacted before. Some of them appraisal has been done, but the offer was not accepted, or the people, when we reached out to them, they have not responded. So 6 of them like that. 4 of the parcel are with the tribes. And I think
You said the numbers were individual, not
Yes.
parcel, but for the tribes, it's parcels.
it would be parcels or like 4 cases, you can say.
So that
Parcels
one-
and the tribe combined.
So it's still just.
And are we talking about Robinson Rancheria?
Yeah, 2 of
only,
them.
Or Habematola as well?
Both.
Okay.
Both of them. So that's what I'm saying. 4 cases, which includes, I think 2 of them might be Robinson, and 1 might be Habematol, and 1 might be another tribe. So
Scotts
4.
Valley, maybe?
I don't think they have any
Yes.
parcels in that.
Scotts Valley
It
or
would be Habitatol or
somewhere.
Robinson.
Yeah. But I think what,
And Habitatol is one that was gonna be for the switch too.
yeah.
Does that count?
One right next.
So for this one, we need like further direction from this committee saying how are we proceeding with that, or what's the status? It seems like on some of them, we were with agreement with the tribe that they are okay with some of the things,
This
but
committee has been completely out of the loop, that it's a government to government that does not include us.
Yeah, I mean, like, because like I'm giving the update on all the parcel we need, so there are like 4 cases, whether it's the supervisor or this committee, like we need to work on in order to finalize this
I don't
project.
think we can with the tribes.
Yeah,
I was told that it's between, the tribes are working with the Army Corps.
And
Yeah.
Meeting regularly,
Yeah.
and we,
yeah,
Just
that's
a
there.
quick question. Are we talking about fee land that the tribe owns, not tribal land that is in trust? We're talking about fee, right?
I'm not sure what exactly the status is, but like what I'm getting at is like we need to have some kind of MOU with them, whether it's the county level, because I'm thinking it would be the county level, like an MOU, whether it's with BIA or the tribe directly involved, but we have to be in agreement with them saying, okay, this is the
is
project going
anyone
on.
from one of the tribes on?
Danielle sometimes attends.
Yeah, I think she normally attends. I'm not sure. Daniela, are you there?
Maybe the first thing is to reach out to both tribes and ask if they want to attend the next meeting and.
Yeah. I mean, right now, because we have like other things to tackle as well, but that thing can go in parallel with like the other steps we are taking. But that's something need to be resolved in order for the project to move forward.
And I think we have a easy way forward if it's in trust. I want to say that, when I say easy, I don't know what the plan is at the Army Corps, but the idea is the Army Corps wants to have all of the properties in order for them to do the work on the projects, that it's less of a liability because it's not working on someone else's property. In a sense, tribal land is federal land for provided for use through sovereignty. But in a way, the federal government already has that land. I may be completely wrong on my description of words or my use of words to describe that, but I think there's a way for the Army Corps to find a way to work with those properties if it's already a trust. They just have to tell us what that way is, because I haven't heard about what that is. If it's in fee, I think that we have to figure out what the plan is, because I'm assuming that right now, if it's in fee, your ability to get it into trust through the federal government is probably not going to happen anytime soon. Just my guess.
Because some of it is recent purchase, that I think they've started.
Or recent enough that the federal government is either, there's nobody left to be able to process these, or they don't care to process them right
That's a
away.
challenge, definitely.
Whatever the situation is, it's unknown, I'm sure, not just to me, but possibly also to the tribes. What's this timeline and process look like today versus what it was a year ago?
Do you know if the ring levy, I think it's the gas station where the ring levy was going to go in the original plan was.
One of those is in trust, one of the parcels is, because they're doing a restoration project for the culverts there, but I don't know what the other parcels. The other thing is all 4 of those parcels have different situations, different types of ownership, and then a couple of them, or one of them at least, was gonna be a land swap with the county. So there's, like, all 4 of them have to be treated a little differently. It's not a collective, just the tribal parcels.
Yeah, but luckily we have Supervisor Crandall here, so I think that will definitely help in facilitating those discussions. He's not here today, but hopefully maybe in the next meeting we can discuss this thing again. So one of the parcel, one owner, which is requesting a higher compensation than what it came for appraisal for.
Which one is that?
I don't remember exactly, but it might be that Bloody Island, I'm guessing, because that was the only
Slightly
one I
higher,
remember.
like 3 times.
So I don't know like how we want to proceed with that, or I mean the grant we have only allows for what came it for the appraisal value, and if it is more than
We
that.
have gone above that, but not that much above that.
I mean, that might be like the relocation, I'm guessing, but as far as, I mean, it has to be justified based on appraisal plus relocation.
So what we did with one of them, I forget if it was Seychow or another.
Montana.
Let's just say we got an appraisal for 800,000, they wanted 930. Like it was approximately like 160, 130.
It was the
The Montanos. And so what we did, we took and I'm just making up numbers. We took the 800 it was appraised for and took that from our grant.
Yeah.
And then we used some other monies that we had, which I think.
But it was a county approved, like the board had to approve it.
Yeah.
The Board of
We
Supervisors.
approved using other funds that we either had in your reserves or used
I
cannabis.
think it was cannabis.
Something else was used to compensate the rest, but we were able to use two funding sources and just stack them together in order to move along, because it wasn't an absurd increase in
Yeah.
comparison to,
And
it wasn't double,
Yeah.
it wasn't triple, it was within a range.
yeah, and I think we might have to do something like that with that first 4 ones, because right now it's in the process, but once we present it to the owners, we will see like what their request is or how we come to a.
Yeah.
So
It's not that sustainable because there's no more cannabis.
pending
fund.
approval,
There's
is
still
it
some. It's
approval
just maybe not in
by
that bucket.
the state or approval by the owner?
Um,
Get wind of that.
so
You can ask.
this is the offer like the county would be presenting to the property owner.
So the property owner, so it's, that you're waiting for approval of the property owner?
No, approval from the Board of Supervisors. So everything has been finalized from DWR state
Okay,
and the county internally, but before we present the offer, there is an approval from the Board of Supervisors,
Okay.
which is called approval of just compensation.
So you have 4 that are planning to go to the Board of Supervisors, because everything else has been
Yes.
dialed in and signed.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Good.
So, so that would be in like next meeting or meeting after that. And then it would be presented to the property owners, and I think it has multiple parcel, 8 to 10 parcels in that. So that would be a big chunk.
Good.
So yeah, so that's kind of one, and we can discuss that in non-willing seller as well. And then we have 3
I'm
of
glad it's
them.
only 3 at
Yeah.
this moment.
Yeah, so 3 of them would are like other unresponsive. I think one of them might be unresponsive, and 2 of them has like declined the offer.
But these are parties, these are not parcels.
Yeah, these are parties. Yeah.
And what I would suggest is, in our later conversation, we're dealing with 6, we're potentially dealing with the 6 we're re-engaging.
Yes.
The 1 that is requesting higher compensation,
Yeah.
and the 3 that are unresponsive decline, that's the potential of 10 non-willing sellers, because we need to really talk about the potential and not just what we may know, because until we have things signed, that doesn't mean that things won't fall apart and that they end up being non-willing.
So
Yeah.
how'd you get 10?
From the 6 and re-engaging with property owners.
What does re-engaging mean? It means at one point they responded and said, oh, I'm willing to think about this, but then it's been a long time since we contacted them?
Yes.
Or,
I know some of them
Or
used
it's
to
a
be
new owner, they
non-willing
used to
that
be
are now
not
willing.
Yes.
okay, so re-engaging means now they're indicating some willingness, but they're not.
I
Sign
mean,
anything.
we have to keep reaching out, even though they in the past they said yes, they did that, we did the appraisal, and at the end moment they say no, or whether the property got sold out to a new owner. So it's that.
That's what I'm asking for re-engaging means.
Dot com.
They had
Re-engaging?
some response to us that was positive in the past, and now we're just keeping up that communication, or they were non-willing in the past, and now we don't know we're re-engaging, because that's.
Yeah, it
what
includes
qualifies.
both, like as I said, like if the property got sold out, and then, I mean, we had some communication with the previous owner, but not the newer one, so that's what re-engaging means.
So they're kind of tentative, re-engaging.
yeah.
They're re-engaging, but we don't know yet the status of work.
Yeah,
And that's why I
That's why
think,
that total 10, I'm like,
that's why
give
I
or
think,
take.
that's why I think we should look
Okay.
at it as a potential
Yes.
10.
Yeah, that's
Rather
the,
than saying we're talking about 3 and then, oh my God, we're talking about 7.
yes, yeah, that's true, but this is kind of like our approach, like if we want to narrow it down to saying what steps we need, because they will have different kind of approach, like how do we resolve
And I
this?
am certain for the tribal properties,
Yeah,
that we will find a way, whatever that way is, in order to move the project forward. Because I don't know any of the tribes that don't think this project should move forward. I think everybody's on board.
yes, yeah, that's a.
So it's just
really
about
good.
finding
Yeah.
the right pathway.
Okay, so that's the current status of parcel, and if we need like further breakdown or something, because I do have from like each individual ones, but I don't know whether that was appropriate for this meeting, because I don't want to like put the names there.
I think it's appropriate if next time you can say 4 pending / 10 parcels, 6 re-engaging
Yeah, okay.
/ just to kind of get an idea of the balance
Bigger
of what we're
picture.
talking.
Yes.
And it'd be nice for me, because I think that way to have the APMs.
Okay,
Like a
Because
spreadsheet.
I have a spreadsheet.
Yes,
and
okay.
People are asking,
Tracks,
how many are-
how
how are
much
we doing
percentage
on it?
wise? Yeah. Okay.
And we don't need names and everything, but the APNs.
APN.
Identify.
Yeah.
yeah, because I want to know acreage.
And this is whittled down from originally how many, 50 or so?
I think we started at 70, didn't
70, okay.
Yeah, but like when you,
we started, it was 30 something.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
already 2012
Yeah,
and so
right.
on had already purchased the bulk.
yes, okay. Okay, so,
Progress.
so the next item is discussion on non-willing sellers and like what approach we should take or like what, and these are like in the box here are the things we have discussed in the past meetings. So Monument Inc. is a company like which who assist us in preparing these document appraisals, presenting the offer to the property owners. So yeah, I think the last time we discussed on that is saying so, and that's why the county council is here today. So like if we need like a further direction or we did had a brief discussion regarding like how we want to approach this one. So a couple of options we have here. The one option is like so the eminent domain. I think it seems like a kind of an extreme step, as you know, like probably it involves a lot of resources from the county side as well. But it seems like county has not done eminent domain for like a decade or like more than that at this point. So it would be a new process for them as well. And the timeline for that, like if we go that route, is like 12 to 18 months to engage like a attorney, like eminent domain attorney, and the rates also is pretty high for them. So like we have to take into consideration like the cost. I'm guessing this 100,000 might be the fees in terms of, I think it included both, like the eminent domain attorney as well as monument fee. So per property, we can expect to pay around 100,000
So per owner or per parcel?
per parcel, I will say. So it depends actually, because if it can be per owner as well, if we are dealing with all at the same time. Because it dependent on the time of attorneys and the monument, and if we are doing multiple projects, it doesn't take too much longer, maybe a little bit more than one.
Does the grants cover eminent domain processes?
Yeah, so that's the question. That's a very good question. We later down in the agenda we do have Department of Water Resources project manager here, and we can pose this question to her, I think. And if she have answer, probably that would be good. Otherwise, I can follow up with her later on, because this is something new which just came up. We were thinking, and yeah, I mean that might be another thing which it might cover the cost because the administration is part of the grant. But I don't know whether they want to do nothing with eminent domain or just they are okay with attorney or these kind of fees.
Yeah, from what we understand, anything related to non-willing sellers is not part of the grant, but maybe we need to say, here are the steps we need to take for non-willing sellers. Are any of these steps something that you might be able to cover through the grant?
Yes.
I don't think it hurts to ask.
Yes.
Just because maybe they'll say something that might surprise us. And
Yes.
if we have money available, let's
Yeah.
see what we can do to use
And
this.
we do have money on the administration side of that, so I think we would be okay, like if it is allowed. The other option we have is like consideration of like we are already doing for like if it is little bit extra cost, like which we can supplement with other funds, which you said we have already done in the past, but not as much as the one property which we have, because they are asking twice or more than twice the cost of it. So that's another route we can take, because eminent domain route also is costing us quite a bit, and like why not just resolve in a way like if it adds up cost. So, and maybe a county might get reimbursed later on down the line with like the whole project cost. That's another thing to consider as well.
Who will reimburse the county?
Maybe like when the bigger projects get implemented, when the Army Corps get this passed through Congress or something, they might have some chunk there for property or something. Who knows, like how it will come out.
Wouldn't count on it, but again,
Yes,
it never hurts
I was-
to ask.
I was almost gonna say, looking for additional grants to cover eminent domain, like the processing, the legal, like to,
Yeah,
because that would help, you're helping implement the project by covering something that was unexpected and not included in the original
That's there, but I think most grants will fall in the same range where they are not comfortable with.
WCB and Prop 4 would probably support that project
Okay,
in that. But again, you have to know exactly what it is, your parcel, who it, like, what is the purchase cost? How much is expected for eminent domain? What are those? Because it's basically providing staff labor time and processes,
So maybe
like planning.
four would have.
Prop, yeah.
yeah, and that's our another option, like keep waiting for the additional funding, so.
And maybe it could leverage some
Blue
county,
Ribbon Committee
That's
is
the
always
Prop
looking
4.
for ways to support Middle Creek.
that's the Prop
Yeah.
4.
And
Yeah.
maybe that's where we can say, hey, we need a little bit of help here.
And you have somebody on the Blue Ribbon Committee.
I've heard. We have multiple somebodies.
Yeah, what is left
What
of the top four designated?
Like 5 million or something.
I mean, that's,
Like that's
Those
not
were the three.
allocated
That's what
already.
it
Just
Yeah.
label
That's a
them
clear
as
like
far
line
as-
item.
I thought it was 20
okay,
million.
so
Yeah,
we have
14
covered all
million's already
three,
kind of
right?
been.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, if
It's
you
already
covered
allocated
waiting,
to us.
Yeah, no, that was.
Yeah, that's the last
Approved,
one.
right, if
Yeah.
CIA wants to fund all those, then there's already kind of 14 million spoken for.
Okay.
So,
We'll take the 5. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the other thing is there's so much money already being invested in this project, any granting agency would want to support it because there's already so much money being leveraged, right? So they're helping it move over the final step, but they can put their name on it and be like, look what we built too.
Yeah.
So it's really a low, it's easy, but you have to have all your ducks like outlined in a row, and so it's good to have a county council there to talk about that process and what that might be.
yeah, so I think these are kind of our three options. Like the last one is like wait for additional funding, whether it's from Blue Ribbon or like some other source which allow the eminent domain or that additional funding on top of the appraisal amount.
So I want to add something real quick. I don't want to steal any of your guys' thunder. But I want to make sure to put guardrails on this conversation. We do not have the ability to initiate eminent domain through this committee. What we can is submit a letter from this committee to the Board of Supervisors stating what our current status is of the project, and maybe when we approach the board with this letter, maybe we provide an update to the project, because it's been a while since we've done an update, and then submit the letter saying, we request that you initiate the process for eminent domain on the non-willing sellers, or start thinking about initiating, or whatever the case might be, because the Board of Supervisors are the only ones that can initiate that true topic. So today it's more of an education of what are these processes, what does it look like, what will it take, because we will be not knee-deep in the process of the courts or the privileged conversations between property owners and the board or whoever's on the team. But it is part of our want to continue to collect all of these properties in order to move this project forward. So we'll be indirectly up to date as to what's happening in some way, shape, or form, as long as that information is allowed to be passed on to this group.
Do you have to let a property owner know that it's going to the board for request for starting the process of eminent domain, or is that the notice?
I think you should be looking in that direction. But absolutely, there's no
Like,
way.
when is, like, do we have to officially say, just so you know, we're starting the eminent domain process, and that's going to the board for review on this date, and you as the property owner can make your public comment then, or you can respond before then with something, like, what's the official?
At
so you
this
guys can
point,
talk about this.
at this point, nothing has to be sent out to any property owners. When the board does consider taking up, there's a specific notice of public hearing on the resolution of necessity. I think it's 15 days before that has to be sent out to the property owners. They have to respond, say, we would like to speak in front of the board. But that's once the board has decided to take up the
Okay,
resolution
so
of
the
necessity.
board is deciding to do that, and then you would send the notice
Yes.
out before then it goes back.
Notice of
Okay.
what?
Notice of necessity. The board has to find that this is the best and highest use for the land and that there is the public necessity for it. So they have to draft a resolution and adopt a resolution with certain terms in it. And when that comes before the board, all the affected property owners have to be noticed. And they have to be given an opportunity to speak because.
So it's like step 2. So the
Yeah.
first thing is the board just saying, yeah, we're interested in this, explore that pathway.
And bring it
And
back
then
to
bring
us
it
when we're-
back.
yeah.
If you want to include this committee, it would be step one would be your committee considering all of the options available for property acquisition. All right, and that would include your, the steps that have been taken already and what's left, right? So reaching out, like you've discussed, looking at alternative funding and all of those options may be available. And you could recommend those, and you could also recommend, and one of the options that it's available to recommend is eminent domain. That letter goes to the board if the board is going to discuss property negotiations or the initiation of litigation, which eminent domain is in fact litigation, then that would happen in closed session. So the second step, or the first step as you identified for the board, would be in closed session to consider whether or not.
And that would be before the property owners.
Correct. And if that's the case, then they would come out of closed session. They would make their findings that are necessary, adopt whatever resolution is necessary, and then make the notices and follow the steps for eminent domain. Prior to that, they would have to consider the costs of the eminent domain. They would have to consider hiring a outside counsel, because this is a very specific, specialized area. You don't want to miss any steps because it sends you right back to the beginning, cost and all. So this is something that would require an expert in that field.
This would be in the closed session.
Yeah, so they'd have to consider, right, so part of closed session discussion would be, hiring counsel. It would include county counsel involved, and that sort of consideration. All of that consideration would be in closed session. And then if they do not look, if the board does not look at, or if they also want to look at the other options, if those options involve property negotiations, those two would happen in closed session. So property negotiations meaning anything that the board would strategize as far as how much they can offer and what sort of steps they can take and what other options are available in relation to the purchase or changing offers for the purchase of various properties. Anything shy of that, of those two things, would probably occur in open session as a discussion. But that would be something that would be determined by County Lloyd and admin at the time that the items would be brought forward.
It seems like a lot of information the board has to have
Yes.
those discussions. So is that something that would be curated through this committee with the county council or with a third-party council that then would be there when they're in closed session? It seems like you have to make a lot of decisions. You need all that information. That's a lot of stuff.
Correct. That would be a
So
lot
where
of
does that
information.
get
So you can
filled out?
identify the information that's necessary. I'm not sure this committee would have access to all of the information, simply because some of it might not be publicly accessible information, and this is a Brown Act committee that does not have a closed session. So it would likely be that you can look at what information would be necessary. So in your recommendations, you can say, look, we're just by way of example, you could say the committee was discussing, amending offers or increasing price or looking at alternatives that could sweeten the deal or what have you. We would recommend that the board look at, and then you could add things, increasing the value. And then if you have other departments or other funding sources, you could say, we recommend that the board look at these funding sources to increase the price. We recommend that the board consider, adding these kinds of elements to an offer to maybe provide incentive, whatever those might be. But you would not be hunting. I don't think your committee would be hunting down, recommending sort of strategy for negotiation. I don't. You would probably stay general.
So I think that what I would like to leave today with is our next meeting is in 60 days approximately. I would like to, I think it's enough time to find out about the 6 re-engaging, where they stand. Are they willing sellers and we're moving them along, or are they non-willing sellers where they just hang up on us and they don't even want to talk, or just not responding, or whatever the case might be. We already have 3 that are unresponsive or officially non-willing, and I think that we need to dwindle that list down to really say, here's how many times we've reached out. Here's that we've received, yes, they're a non-willing, or no, they're not willing, whatever that the right way would be, or non-responsive, or we've offered them more than the appraisal and they refused, whatever the status is for each one. I think that level of information and historical data of what has been done through, not the committee, but the work of the team to try and get the goal accomplished of acquiring all these properties. Here's the history of these properties and why we've identified them and want to approach you with these options. I still think the board needs an update on the project. So I think that would be a good reason to approach the board. And maybe we submit the letter saying, here are all the options, and then we just leave it at that, where that might require a closed session conversation of what does the board want to do. But at least I think it's very transparent that this is the process that these are the options of what we're looking at. These are the barriers that we have to deal with in order to accomplish the goals of this project. And we really want to move this thing forward, especially in light of the revalidation study. We don't want to sit around for another 10 years and have to do another reevaluation study because we're going to have to if it takes that much longer. And so I think that gives us 2 months to get that data to be very clean about those potential 10 and also draft a letter that can be approved here in our next meeting and then be able to eventually put that on the Board of Supervisors agenda for presentation, update on the project, and a submission of our letter to the board.
Yeah, that seems pretty good. Yeah.
Does that sound good to you guys as far as the process? Is that an appropriate process, or are we making it too obvious in requesting to initiate litigation in public? And granted, we're talking about it very publicly.
Yeah. You're basically providing recommendations to the board based on the expertise and information you've gathered as a committee, right? So, which you're not saying you must or you shall or you will or any of those things. You're saying, look, here's the information we have. Here's the information we've gathered. Here's how we've, the history and interpretation of it. And based on all of that, we are recommending that the board take these actions. And then essentially that is sent to the board, and then the board considers whether or not they should take that action. If they need more information, they can certainly direct staff to provide it. If they need an explanation, they can certainly request those who have it to come in and explain. So the board has a lot of options as far as gathering further information should they need it, and making an informed decision. Although I will say that if you are sending a letter with a specific recommendation, the more information they have about why you are convinced these are appropriate steps to take, the better. So then they can have a fully informed decision. But yeah, as long as you are not engaging in confidential things, which you wouldn't be because you're not having a direct conversation with the board. So, and when I say that, I mean things like property negotiation. We recommend that you take these steps and use these strategies to reach this goal. Or litigation, you could say we think for these properties, eminent domain may be the appropriate step to go.
We have a list of options. And here's a list of properties that we have barriers for. We're submitting this to you.
Right.
Please help guide us. You're the ones with access to funding. You're the ones who budget. You're the ones who make litigation decisions.
Right.
We're putting that decision in the hands of the board.
We've effectively reached our limit as to authority. We're based on all this information we have, we are recommending you take these decisions or take these steps and make these decisions in this direction. And then you leave it in the hands of the board.
So it seems like, this committee's talked about eminent domain for a while as an option, so it's not like it's like totally new.
Yeah.
But also monument, it seems like they've worked on eminent domain projects before, so is it a role within the contract for them to help prepare your documentation packet for eminent? Okay, so it has to be internally within?
I think that we have not identified that in the contract whatsoever because it was based off of the state contract, which had nothing to do with eminent domain and non-willing settlers. So it's possible that as conversations continue, we might identify, okay, maybe how about we amend the contract with monument? That's a potential outcome that could occur. But that
Well,
will.
at least for preparing, like, they should be able to prepare, they have all the history and the
Yes.
contact with the,
So I
and
think,
why we're at the point now where this property is now being recommended for eminent domain.
I don't think we should ask a contractor to prepare for something that needs to be decided in closed session by the board. Right now, because that would take money for them to prepare.
Well, it's not the letter, but it's just, here's the history of communications with this property owner and the responses and,
If I may?
yeah.
You may ask them what services the contractor, what services they provide for eminent domain, and then should the board go in that direction, then the board can decide to include that information when searching for attorneys who practice in this area to determine whether or not an amendment would be necessary or that the contractor's efforts would be useful here. It may be that they are redundant, or it may be that the attorney does not prefer to work with county hired contractors. Any number of things could come up. But if you are aware of what the contractor does provide as far as services related to eminent domain, then you can provide that information to the board and you can say, should this be a direction that your board chooses to go? The contractor that is already hired for this project provides the following services in relation to this.
yeah,
I think that we can't, the nature of the funding, my understanding of it, we cannot use any funds in current funds to pay Monument to do anything. Because what we're talking about.
Outside of what the grant allows us to
Yeah,
do.
the willing sellers. I think providing an option to the board of Monument makes a lot of sense. I think that'd be a great idea, but I think we cannot pay Monument out of the grant to do anything.
And that's where I am too. If we ask him to write any kind of proposal, writing proposals cost money. Are we paying for that? Because if we're paying it out of the grant, that's a misuse of the grant to write a proposal about eminent domain.
Yeah.
That would need to be done in a different way. I think I agree wholeheartedly that we have to make sure to split those hairs appropriately and not get them all braided up.
and I think this thing came up in the previous meetings as well. So that's why we have this item here, because they can provide the support or like whatever they are doing for other properties, like they can do similar kind of stuff for eminent domain as well. And because they are not attorneys, so we do have to get an attorney in order to deal with that.
The board does.
Yes, a board, and then the total 100,000 would be kind of the monument cost plus the attorney's cost. That's what I remember from the last meeting.
So what exactly is, just to understand timelines, obviously will have nothing to do with the process if it is initiated by the board, but what is the approximate timeline and steps of eminent domain from initiating all the way to getting it approved, that yes, we are forcefully, I don't know what other word to use, taking a property for the public benefit of this project. What's the process and timeline potentially looking like?
So as Juan said, you're looking at 12 to 18 months from beginning to end, and that's assuming it goes all the way through a jury trial, because that's what it ends up being. The eminent domain process isn't so much if the property will be acquired by the public entity, it's just how much it will be acquired for. That's what the jury decides. So the first step, you get the appraisal done. In the law, most of the time, appraisals need to be relatively recent. They go stale rather quickly. So 6 to 12 months. If any of the appraisals are older than that, you'll need to reappraise. You'll need to approach the property owner, give them an official offer with the basis of the offer being the appraisal. So you have to give them that. If they then say no, then it goes in front of the board. The board adopts the resolution. Well, the board sends out the notice of the intent to adopt the resolution of necessity. You have the public hearing after all the property owners have gotten their notices. If they still, that is, the property owners still do not want to sell, then you begin the legal process. Retain the attorney, you start the court process. There are a number of pre-trial steps, so you'll have to go in front of the judge a number of times. Each one of those, you're at the mercy of the courts, and right now the courts, you're looking at 2 to 3 months for non-priority cases. So if there are 2 or 3 pre-trial hearings, you're looking at an extra 6 to 9 months just built in there.
And that's per property.
Is it based on the appraisal done at month 1? Like, at no point between that first month through it looks like 18 months to maybe
So
2 years. You have to get
Before,
reappraised.
before the trial, there is the requirement to have yet one more sit-down, kind of meet and confer, where both sides bring their own appraisals in. The public entity will probably rely on their old appraisal. The property owner will bring in their own appraisal value, and at that point, you sit, you meet, you try to come to an agreement. If no agreement is met, then you have a jury trial. Jury decides how much your property is worth. At that point, the county in this case, the public entity, purchases the property, receives the title, but the judge can decide if the county's, in this case, offer was unreasonable, it was too low, then all of the costs for both sides falls to the public entity. So it's really important that the appraisal be appropriate, because if the offer's too low, then both sides' legal costs fall to the public entity, and that's expensive. But that whole process, 12 to 18 months ideally.
Unless, obviously, the process doesn't require, but is somewhat aiming for hoping of mediation, finding the solution.
Yes.
If mediation works early on, it could be a whole lot less than 12 to 18 months. If it doesn't, the full gamut would be the 12 to 18 months, if
Exactly.
everything falls into place and
Settlement
we're
would
not
be ideal.
absurd in any of our actions.
Optimistic.
So you didn't say anything about who decides yes or no,
Who decides yes or no about?
that eminent domain is appropriate. I mean, if the county brings an eminent domain,
That's the Board of Supervisors in this case.
so the board of supervisors.
When they adopt the resolution of necessity, that's them putting their stamp
I was thinking
on
the
it.
jury would be the yes or no, but they're not. They're just the
They,
amount.
they can consider whether that it meets the statutory requirements of, this being in the public good and this being the highest and best use for the property. But the basis for that is the resolution of necessity. The finder of fact, the jury in this case can consider that. But unless there is some patent error with the resolution of necessity, the judge can override the jury's decision that that's not appropriate, that they can find that fact for it as a matter of law.
Okay.
So really, all the jury is doing is just deciding how much compensation is appropriate.
Okay.
So it seems like that letter of necessity or the resolution of necessity is the keystone, is like pretty important.
It is, and
And-
statutorily, there are things that
Right.
have to be in it, and that's something that,
That's why I was saying
That's what
that it's
the board-
really important for the board to have as much information about that property as possible when they're making that determination to issue the notice of necessity.
Well, but I think that's like step 3. Step 1 is we present. Step 2 is the board makes a decision on what options they want to go with. If they want to go with the eminent domain option, it initiates the closed session conversations on how to approach it and how to move forward. And eventually, once things are ready to go, it goes back to open session with that resolution so that it explains exactly why it is that we're doing this and what the benefit is of. So I think that that's easy to have all the conversations needed to make sure that that document is as
Complete.
as possible.
With any county decision by the board. It's the resolutions and official decisions, ordinances, that type of thing, that are scrutinized when you get into the court level. So that document's important because it is the clear evidence of the board's reasoning and findings and decision.
So the judge will look very carefully at that before initiating, that those will be those meetings, pretrial hearings?
No, the judge won't be involved in those. Normally, for those, it would be the parties discussing to see if they can settle. And ideally, once you get to that level, ideally you don't want to drag it out for the 12 to 18 months. You do, in fact, want to have a settlement. And it's not uncommon, civil litigation, it is not uncommon for settlements to occur once people start to get into the real cost of paying for the court proceedings and the representation there. And that's true for the county too. The county may decide that, rather than pay their attorney upwards of $300 or more an hour for 12 to 18 months, they'd rather agree to a specific type of settlement. You never know.
So yeah, I mean, it seems like letter of necessity is the one which, on the basis of which the Board of Supervisors is deciding, and that can be challenged by the court because that's what the basis for the Board of Supervisors deciding on. And it seems like both sides, letter of necessity is the critical point on
So
whether.
for eminent domain,
It's
yeah.
a letter
For
of
the eminent
necessity.
It's a resolution of necessity.
It's a resolution.
Yeah,
Okay.
saying the official. So the thing is, like, because this project's been going on for 20 years, so there's 20-year history of communications and offers and things being given to the property owners. So that's what I'm saying, that, for the board to make a clear decision on their resolution of necessity, need to have that clear.
I'm
Right.
gonna be honest with you, as a board member.
Right.
What happened 20 years ago, I don't really care. I want to know, what have we done in the last 3 years to communicate with them? Because if you got to know, I don't want to sell 20 years ago, but you don't show me that you had any communication in the last 6 months, 3 years, then I'm going to say, well, I can't
You
accept
didn't do your
this.
homework.
So, I mean, from my perspective, I don't know how the rest will think it through, but I think the last 3 to 5 years are the most important historical understanding of what have we
Okay.
engaged with these properties, because it's about what we've done lately, not what we've done since.
I was just thinking about, like, if you had one property owner that from the get-go has been like, no, like, that might be a property that would be better for eminent domain versus a property that's gone through 5 different ownerships, and this person's 2 years, and they're like, probably trying to resell or something, like, those are the things you might want to notice.
And that's
They
exactly
might
why.
take a 50 grand above, which would be easier to do.
And that's exactly why I want to give us time to be able to get those 6 re-engaged.
Yeah,
Let's figure out
Okay.
where we are with them. Are they, send me a price,
Yeah.
right? Like, okay, well, that's somebody we might be able to work with.
Right.
Hell no. Okay, let's add them to the list.
Yeah.
So understanding what those 6 are, and also whoever was already asking more, if it is the Bloody Island, that guy's asking for
Yeah.
way above what we should ever agree to, personally. So I think that he would be added on as well.
he might change
That's-
his tune in the,
In court.
I know it's a public
Yeah.
meeting, but I'll just say it right now, because it'll be the way I feel, whether in open or closed. Doing any kind of eminent domain on Bloody Island is just a bad perception of something that is not what I want government getting involved right now. It feels like, of course, right? Of course, that's what you're doing, and we need to be careful with that one. We need, if that is the only course of action that we have, and I know that supposedly Robinson Rancheria took interest in purchasing it, but same thing, the price was just way out of control. They weren't able to buy it. But I think that we need to work on our outreach and our message that goes along with that, because it is not going to sit well with many people who may not understand what we're faced with when trying to work to make a healthier lake and finish this project. So it's one that I hope we can get by without having to do that for, because I think it's going to make it really difficult. That's just me.
Well, when the land trust is working with tribes, I think Peter, my predecessor on this committee, I mean, his advocate for Bloody Island doesn't give that.
Well, but you still have to.
You have to get it in the
You have
first
to get it
place.
in the first place, like whatever the end action is.
but being clear about what that might be
Yeah.
from the beginning,
But that's my
lessens
point.
some of your, that.
Yeah, I mean,
But again, we don't get to, we can come up with whatever we want here.
It's not up
It
to
has to
determine
be, it
what
has
that
to be the
is.
Board of
I know,
Supervisors
but
that makes that
I
final.
would advocate in our letter that we would theoretically be generated, that we bring that up as a possibility for the board to support. I think that, to me, would be open and above. See, that's what the land trust ran into, that in terms of when we're raising funds from our donors, we have to be clear in our fundraising that the plan is to give that property to a tribe. We can't say, we're going to have the public come, and we're going to do public events like we do at our other ones, and then give it to the tribe, and that doesn't happen. But, so I think.
And I think there's other options too. I see it in other places. There's co-management. There's different opportunities to make sure that we treat it appropriately. And I don't know what direction we're gonna end up going, but I don't disagree with what you're saying. But I think that the process, if it's a private individual and we're doing eminent domain, that will already go down with a negative perception, because eminent domain is not deemed it's not outside the scope of the perception of government overreach, right? We're forcing you to do this.
No, I get
And so
everything.
now
but I just-
that one just creates a whole other hurdle. And to be honest, I don't even believe our tribal nations are going to say anything. I think they understand the process and they understand the project. I think it's going to be others who are still sensitive to that as well.
I understand all of that, and that's why I think we need to be, as I said, just completely open. If the committee decides they want to recommend that to the Board of Supervisors,
100%.
and then it's up to the Board of Supervisors, but I think, to me, it's.
We got to do it right.
Should happen.
Yeah, we got to do it right.
Yeah.
Any other questions for this
agenda item?
I appreciate the information, and also to make sure we don't get ourselves in trouble and going further than this committee is supposed to go, keeping us in line, because we're not having a closed session last week because we're not allowed to make these kinds of decisions or conversations. That's the board's job. So hence why we found ourselves here today and not last week.
Really not an authority I think anybody wants.
No.
That's a hefty responsibility.
That's why they get paid the big bucks.
Juan, do you think that's a good enough timeline to be able to get those 6 finalized and a better understanding of where they are, what their capability, what they're willing to do?
I think we can definitely reach out from our side, but I'm not sure like whether we will get the response back within that time.
Yeah, that's
So-
you don't get to control it.
Yes, yeah. So, and I think that's the part of non-willing seller is like they are not communicative. So I don't know whether but we can reach out from our side and then wait or see like what the next step would be. But maybe the same thing, but maybe it might get delayed for another meeting or so. But I think the approach you suggest, I think seems pretty reasonable.
And I'm not in the greatest rush to begin this. I think we do need to begin it at one point before it becomes, we're done with everything else and that's all we're waiting on.
Yes.
So I think waiting 1 or 2 meetings maximum
Yeah, okay.
would be good. And still saying like things could change because maybe somebody suddenly finds themselves in a situation where the market is crashing and their value of their property is about to go down 20%. They want to sell it with the appraisal of yesterday. Like
Yeah.
things just happen that change things. And I think that we need to, when it's proposed to the board, these are potential because there's always that potential that things change.
Yeah. And I think, so I just remembered one more thing on that. So I had like 4 properties or 4 property owners, like which we will be presenting the offer to. But at this point, under the grant, which is the subsection of the grant allocated for property acquisition. So suppose, let's say like we need $3 million for those 4 properties. We only have $2 million in that, but we do have money on other heads. So we will be hearing from DWR representative whether we can shift those money around or like how we can proceed. But we are reaching towards the end of that grant itself. Like moving forward, like we still have 10 property owner or multiple parcel to acquire. So we do have to look for additional funding, whether through Blue Ribbon or DWR, wherever that is. But that's another thing we need to keep an eye for.
So we can move, right now we can, with these 4 that are at the Board of Supervisors, assuming they approve it and it goes to the property owners and they say, yes, we need to move funds into the acquisition from something else.
Yes, especially if all 4 of them accept it. So if not, maybe we might have enough. So depending on that, but we will hear a little bit more on like what options do we have.
So if you combine together the 6 that are re-engaging, the 4 that are unwilling, we also have to add in the Bloody Island. So it's really 11, potentially, maximum, that we could be talking about.
No, I think it was still.
Yes, 6, 3, and 1.
6, 3, 1. Yeah, I think it was still
Oh, I
10
thought the
total.
unwilling and unresponsive were 4. Oh, three, sorry. Okay, thanks.
Hey, money will be tight.
Yes.
Not so fast. I had a question. I don't want to be out of the agenda and get things out of order, but I don't want these people to leave without asking them a question.
Sure.
One of the items we have on the agenda is someone requesting from this committee a letter of support for a grant application. And this committee is a subcommittee of the Board of Supervisors. And so I'm wondering about whether we as a body have any power to write a letter of support for.
Other committees have written support letters.
So that's what I need to know.
I really wouldn't, I mean, you could probably recommend to the board that they do it if you think it's worth recommending. I'm not sure
Well,
what,
the Risk Reduction Authority does support letters.
I don't know.
But they're not a
what if-
committee, they're a JPA.
Oh, they are now. Yeah, okay.
They're Jim Cowers.
The Clean Water Program has written support letters.
Yeah, well, okay.
I mean,
so-
we've done other committee, but it's clear, we have our own logo, our own letterhead, like, it's clear it's coming from that subcommittee, and it identifies each of the officials on there as who they represent.
It largely depends on the.
Because they're multi-jurisdictional, they're not just within the county.
It largely depends on the authority of the committee, and its formation and its purpose. This committee's purpose is advising the board, I suspect, right?
And what I will say is, I think 14.1 is outside of the jurisdiction of this committee, because this committee is specific to Middle Creek.
That's what I was
It is not specific to the health of the lake.
Yeah.
If it was the health of the lake, then I would say the Revitalizing of Clear Lake Oaks initiative would fit within that scope. But here, our scope is solely to push and focus on this project, which has to do with the project area.
So if it was adjacent to the Middle Creek project, like a tribal project that was gonna be doing some restoration within Middle Creek, or something that was more
Up at
directly.
that end of the lake.
I would still
Yeah,
recommend that you provide a
Go with it.
letter to the board saying, this has come to our attention.
Yeah.
Here's what's convinced us that it's worthy of a letter, and so we recommend the board provide one.
Did they?
Yeah, that
They
makes
didn't
sense.
go to the board itself. I'm surprised they didn't.
Thank you then.
I did for.
Well, that's what we can, that's what we can recommend to them, like, hey, unofficially, we think this is great, it has nothing to do with Middle Creek at this time,
Yeah.
but we suggest you go to the board and contact
Right.
admin and get your letter to the board, like, that's what we can suggest.
To Hannah, I just
Right.
was surprised.
We're out of order, but yeah.
Yeah, that's there, but I think even though it is not related with Middle Creek, like if we want to provide a support, we can, because it's.
The water resources can, and I think you guys did already.
It's like an objective. The objective is here for the Middle Creek Project Committee, but if it is even unrelated, like a reference, right? It's a reference, so it doesn't matter whether it has to directly deal with Middle Creek. But I think it's saying what is the scope of this committee. Like if we want to take additional things, then it might be okay, in my opinion.
I think it's outside our scope. The Board of
Yeah.
Supervisors was very clear in the creation of this committee that
Okay.
it had everything to do with just the Middle Creek
Yeah.
project.
Okay.
And not, if there's ancillary things that we want to talk about impacts to the Middle Creek project itself, like sediment load coming out of the National Forest or sediment load coming off of Cow Mountain and impacting the Middle Creek project, I think that would be within our scope.
Okay.
If it's things that are downstream and we're talking about Cache Creek or we're talking about Clear Lake Oaks, those are not going to go the opposite direction and impact Middle Creek project. So I think we stay within our lane of what was provided when this committee was created. If we want to change it, I think we need to go back to the board and ask if the scope can be changed.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like I didn't have that history, so I think that makes sense to me. So this would be like suggesting to the board or like asking them to go to the board.
I would first check with Hannah. I'd be shocked if they haven't sent something to the board.
Yeah, we'll
Oh,
find
yeah.
out.
I just haven't seen it come up in their agenda yet, but there's lots of other subcommittees too that they can ask that would be directly more relevant.
Yeah.
For them also.
Yeah. And as Angela said, maybe if they need it, maybe Water Resources can
I
provide.
think Chris
us
already
support.
gave them already drafted a support letter that
Okay.
you or him should have
I
signed.
mean, I've not signed it, so
Okay.
I don't.
And I would have to say, since Harry and I are both on the RCD board, which is the grantee for the it would be recommending, we couldn't. We couldn't.
Sounds like there might be a little bit of.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna get money because of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, actually, we do have like, people on the meeting, but it seems like if the county council be leaving, probably we have other things we want to be brought up, because these are non-timed items, so I don't know whether we want to take it now or.
I think that we had a brief conversation about it. I think we go back and we finish item number 4 and move on. Time is
We're
going.
not done with item number 4 yet?
I think we should be done, but I just want to make sure. But I'd like for us to be done before 12 if possible, so
Okay.
I think the rest we can go through
Since I
quickly.
have no parking lot to park in, I'm on a timed parking spot.
They're not good.
Okay, so I think, so we are good with this, like we do have some directions to go, and then we will proceed with like what we discussed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I apologize for messing up your agenda.
Troublemaker.
At $300 an hour, I didn't want these people to sneak.
No, county council, we're discounted, we're on 140 an hour.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you.
It's good to see you, Nicole.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks.
So the next item we have is Bondo of Poti, which is the Bloody Island. So normally we have an update on that, but I don't know whether we have it today.
So I think that part of the reason that we created the idea of the ad hoc committee for this was mostly to speak with Robinson and to try and figure out how to get access to the property owner. I think that there has been a certain level of access, but not anything that has brought us any avenues to move forward.
Yeah.
And so what I would suggest is what was just brought up is I think we need to ask this ad hoc committee to come back with what is our final expectation, because eventually we have to take ownership of this property.
Yep.
Like that's, or maybe the tribe does, but eventually it should be in trust in order for the Army Corps issue to be dealt with.
Yep.
But somebody has to have access to this property in order to pass it on to the Army Corps for the project to move forward. But I think we need to, what is our final destination for this property? What is the outcome? Is it a give back? Is it a co-management? Is it some third idea that I'm just not aware of? But I think that we need to organize something so that we can say that is what we would like to propose the county does with this property once acquisition has been
So who's on the subcommittee?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, who was on that ad hoc?
I think Supervisor Crandall was.
It's
Yeah.
been a long
I want to say it was Supervisor Crandall and Water Resources.
Okay.
I asked from time to time, but I think because water,
Should be
no,
pivotal too?
it should be, huh?
It's an ad hoc, right? So pivotal should be on there too, right?
Well, I mean, the ad hoc from this group was Water Resources and Supervisor Crandall because it's only 2 out of the 5, so that it's not a Brown Act violation. And so, as far as who you meet with in order to accomplish the goal of the ad hoc committee, that was up to the ad hoc committee, and I would say, yes, absolutely, it's any and all that have interest in that area. But I would say, obviously, conversation is still a requirement with the tribes. You can't just say, here's our options for the plan. But I think that eventually that's what we probably need to do rather than trying to approach the property owner, which has gotten us nowhere. I think it's more of an approach of, okay, once we get that property, what is the plan? What are we doing with this property?
So you mentioned just Habemetal. Wouldn't, my understanding of Bloody Island, and I could be completely wrong, is that.
I added that. I added that as well.
Okay.
Because Robinson, I think, has been an absolute conversation with that. But if Habemetal has any connection,
They should both be included.
I don't
It's
know.
not up to us to
I don't
do
know
that.
old school territory, linguistics, maps, all those things. I hear, no, don't use that one. So anyone that has any interest in Bloody Island should be included in the conversation. But I think we need to have a proposal to the Board of Supervisors as to what we believe the outcome of that piece of property should be based on those conversations.
I know when we were working on acquiring land, the county was required to ask all the tribes in the county if they wanted to be involved. And I think that needs to be done with this too, because my understanding is.
Oh, there's connections to every single tribe for going in Bloody Island.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, even Middletown Rancheria has shared a connection to Bloody Island.
Yes. That was my understanding of the history, so, great.
And the reason I mention them is they're the furthest away physically, but still have a connection.
Yeah.
So I assume that all probably do as well.
Good.
So that would be what I would say for that, number 5.
So it's direction to the ad hoc, is
Yes,
to have a conversation with,
is to expand more away from
what's
property
the end goal,
acquisition.
identify what the end goal should be, to determine the direction for this committee too. Okay.
Okay, so moving along, the next item we have is the update from California Department of Water Resources. And we should have their project manager, Nahide Madankar.
Hi there. Yes, I'm here. You hear me okay?
Are we muted or no? She must know
No.
because she's talking.
Yeah, we can hear you. I think you can go ahead.
Okay.
Do you have any slide or anything to share?
I think I've looked at your email. We talked about what you were asking for the last time. I have some questions actually, just to clarify. You have talked about or requested reallocation, which we can do, I believe. We can talk further. But I'm curious why you haven't mentioned the contingency fund. Because there is still, as far as my records show, there is still about 1.1 million in contingency fees that can be used unless you have other plans for it.
Yeah, I think the email which I sent to you, I think that does include it like I suggested. So right now, I think we have 1.1 million in contingency. So I suggested something like saying, can we take 500,000 or 600,000 out of that, especially if we are $1 million short out of those 4. Those kind of one of my suggestion. But that was just for an example, like because we have to shift the money around.
So just a clarification of what she's talking about. This is not for properties that would like us to pay for more than what it was appraised for. This is for if we run out of money for the appraised value of properties that we are buying,
Yes.
that we are able to use contingency funds or other potential buckets within the grant to move over money into the purchase of appraised value properties,
Yes.
correct?
Yes. Yeah, that's correct.
My understanding from what she's asking is, for contingency funds, do we have to ask for reallocation to move them into property purchase? Or is contingency different
Just draw
from the
down
others?
from that fund.
Can we just draw it directly from the fund without going through the paperwork of a reallocation?
You would still have to approve the use of contingency. I have looked at the agreement. Interestingly, it doesn't really state anything specific that needs to be met, conditions in order to release the contingency. But what we would like to know to approve it in writing, because it's kind of silent. So that shouldn't be a big problem. And I think it probably is listening to the discussions earlier on land acquisition, it might actually be a good idea to revisit the scope of work and see what items have been completed. Like Porn, I think you were noting task 4 may have been completed already, and there's some money that you want to reallocate. So that would be good to know which tasks have been completed, just to justify the request for reallocation. And in doing so, we could also talk about what you would like to do, what the county would like to do with the contingency fund, where we want to basically release the fund to which tasks. So it just makes the budget and the scope of work cleaner moving forward, if that makes sense.
It'll make it more efficient to give us that flexibility if we re-identify what those potential tasks are, is what I'm hearing.
Correct. And if there is anything that is pertinent to the project that wasn't, discussed before, described before, it will be an opportunity to at least request it and we consider it and make sure as long as it's in compliance with the flood corridor program guidelines and the agreement, current agreement, we could provide for those provisions too.
Okay.
It's an old agreement, so there is room to improve and make it clear. And I don't really know how much more funding you need to complete the project, but it would also be a good idea to have an estimate of what is left in terms of land acquisition. I know that we approved, Juan knows that, we approved 4 parcels that haven't gone into escrow yet. And I think that's about just under 3.1 million, I believe. So yes, we could definitely take care of, well, let me just correct myself without saying anything. So I just want to leave some room for consideration of, items that I may have overlooked, but I am quite optimistic that we can take care of those 4 parcels through reallocation and hopefully use of some of the contingency funds. And if you let us know how much more money you need, I have some idea that I like to talk to Pon about it later before I bring it up at this meeting. So we can talk about maybe another option that is worth exploring on.
So direction, Pawan, please have that conversation.
Yes.
Sounds like it's useful.
So this committee agrees on saying, moving forward, especially for the 4 we have, we want to use the contingency to cover whatever is
We
shortfall
want
right now.
absolutely 0 delays, whatever flexibilities we can implement so that we know that we're able to move money around for the purposes that are allowed to move that money around, so that we don't have to delay any of these escrows or any of these purchases. Absolutely 100%. I think you have consensus from the group that we would like that flexibility.
Okay.
Please have the conversation about what money we may need, and I'm hopeful that based on acreage and based on average per acre value, I'm sure we can find that somewhere. I'm sure our Realtors Association might be able to get that to us if we don't have access to that. But based on the per acre value and the acreage still needed to be purchased, that can give us a basic idea of what we might need. And at that point, that might be the amount, give or take 20%, what we ask for Water Resources to see what they can do to help us out to make sure that we have the funding to finish what we need to finish.
Contingency on the contingencies.
Yes. Granted, some of them may be unwilling sellers, and that doesn't help us.
Yeah.
With that, but please have those conversations, because we've been concerned since the beginning.
Yeah.
That it's only getting more and more expensive. It's
Yes.
not getting much cheaper, so the money looks like it's not going to cover everything.
Yeah, and I think that has happened in the past as well. Like we started with certain amount and DWR raised the total grant amount, so it would be similar kind of process, I'm guessing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Is that it for DWR?
There was a question, I had a question about the scope of work, Ms. Mandakar, the scope of work for the 4th item, hydraulic mitigation of U.S. trust lands. Kind of had my eye on that for some cash for acquisition too, because I wasn't really sure what the scope of work is. What is that? What is hydraulic mitigation of U.S. trust lands?
Well, I went back to the agreement to make sure I understand it as well. So from what I'm interpreting, if you look at your the agreement between, let me find the document. I have too many files open. Okay, so if you look at, I'm not sure if you have a copy. I can share the screen if it helps you, Juan. Let me see. Okay. We share. See if I can share. Yeah, I have too many files open and I'm not sure how to share.
The definition of hydraulic mitigation involves strategies and techniques to address and reduce negative impacts of water-related hazards such as floods, droughts, and erosion through water management and restoration projects.
But I think we are talking specifically for this project.
I know, but that's the definition of that, and if it's on US trust lands, means it's relevant to the.
We're voting it's the ring levy.
Yeah, I think it's the parking lot of Robinson.
Yeah, so that still remains to be done.
Right,
That
yes.
still remains.
Parking lot, the highway, and
So we need to leave that be.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, for some reason I'm not able to share right now, but there's task 4, which basically is talking about 8 parcels that are held by the U.S. in United States in trust for the Robinson Rancheria, which the Middle Creek project will cause to flood. So I have looked at the past land acquisition, and I noticed there was one for about 1.5 million. We labeled it, or we titled it as Robinson Lake property, I believe. So if that covers this task, so it sounds like we basically reimbursed or we paid for about 1.5 million worth of property that could be related to that task 4. But really it's important for you to look to see whether you've covered all those 8 parcels reimbursement. Is there anything left? So what this task basically included was to acquire those tasks and do anything that is engineering related to the plans, the specification, to elevate the properties in terms of protecting the flooding. There was an item for bidding the construction contract, and also what else? And acquire some overflow conservation easement on parcel west of Highway 20. So those items, as long as you've completed the task as described in the agreement, then you're done. But I won't be able to say that without digging in more. But I'm guessing that I haven't seen any documents showing that there were any engineering plans or bid documents. So maybe the county could. I think county is probably in a position to know more about that task. But basically, it's just in summary, acquiring the parcels and doing some engineering plan and construction bid, completing the construction to mitigate whatever is required in terms of hydraulics to achieve the goals.
Thank
Does that
you.
make sense?
Yeah, thank you. That's
Thank you.
fine.
So for that task, this committee should ask Robinson what the status is, because I know they had WCB consultants helping them actually do some conceptual design plans for their property by the gas station across from the casino where that culvert is, and they were actually going to do some retentions, things to kind of offset the flooding impact that would be directed to the parking lot.
If I remember, Louis Santana was involved in those conversations and in the re-evaluation study that was happening.
Because they were trying to do like, how do we, prevent some flooding damage, but also then restore this part of the creek where the hitch are, and provide more water for the, it made sense to utilize some of those flooding.
Yeah, to me, it looks like probably we should want to keep that, because it might be in addition to what Robinson has been already doing.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but yeah.
But I mean, you could count that task is moving forward if Robinson is doing some preliminary stuff on it too. But they should be a part of the committee discussions on that.
Yeah.
Maybe we could have Luis or somebody
should attend.
join our meeting next time
Yeah.
to get an update,
Okay.
so we're all on the same page.
And they do have an EPA director now also.
Oh, okay.
The EPA director should be involved or invited at least to this
Yeah.
committee.
Okay.
Great.
The tank, right? No.
Yeah. I don't think he's typical.
Is he typo? Okay. Yeah, no, that's. But,
And I can add, just to clarify for myself, you were discussing about eminent domain, and I think there was, did you
Yes.
ask whether DWR would approve it or whatever? Is that, was that the case?
What was asked was to, once we have the step-by-step process of what our agency needs to do to proceed with eminent domain, was to maybe send that your way to see which parts of the process may be covered by the grant that we have, just in case there's similar processes on whether it's willing or non-willing, that maybe DWR would say this is an appropriate use of these grant dollars versus not appropriate use. If we don't ask, we may just be making assumptions. So we thought maybe we could send it your way and look, unless you want to tell us absolutely not, we don't cover anything related to that. But that was what was brought up.
Yeah. I definitely cannot say that we won't cover it, but I looked at the agreement again to see whether there was anything. It's really there just, if you look at section 15B and F, it just talks about willing sellers. Yeah. However, we've been involved in projects that involves land acquisition, which they've had to go through eminent domain. I'm not certain whether we've covered the fees or whatever, but if it gets to the point that it's essential for the project, the land that you acquire, and the county deems it necessary to do that, then we'll definitely look at it, but I will have to consult with our council.
I appreciate you leaving the door open.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I think I will say like even the county's position is somewhat similar. It is absolutely essential. Then county probably gonna proceed that route. So it would be good to know, like, if you can check
what we need to do to make sure we can get some help. Maybe there are certain steps they can tell us we have to take that we wouldn't take typically.
Yeah, because knowing that now would be helpful for us, because if we are going that route, so just to know whether like, do we have to come up those funds, or do we have those funds which can be used?
I mean, it would be helpful if you let me know. These aren't, I'm guessing these aren't the properties that we have reviewed yet, correct?
Yes, yeah, no, these are like in addition to those ones. And I can send you specifically email about like what we are discussing, and then we can.
Be helpful. I mean, just make clear who it involves, if there are any other entities, like if tribe is involved, anything that might be sensitive, so I can ask all the relevant questions.
Okay, yeah,
Thank you.
that sounds good. Thank you.
Move on to number 7.
Yeah, okay. So moving along, I think the next item we have,
Maintenance.
Project area property maintenance. So we are not doing a whole lot, but we did receive like a complaint about one of the property, like having some old stuff, whether pipes or plumber or just lying around. It's a 40-acre parcel. So we would be working on to resolve that issue, because that notice came from CDD. I'm guessing somebody complained them about it.
Okay.
But we do have funds for that, and we will go ahead identify it, because it's a 40-acre lot. So first is identifying, and then second would we will go ahead with.
If it's our property, we need to take care of it.
Yeah.
Are we doing anything about, or have we done everything about the buildings on some of the properties?
So for the building, like I think on one of the property, there was a request, like somebody wants to clean it out, like take it away. I checked with the county council about that, and we did give them a right of way, saying where they can be saved and we don't have to spend our time to clean up the property.
Have we done a post inspection on that? Like, did they take away the septic tanks and the gas lines? Like, because they did their own demo.
Yeah, so it's part of the agreement we have with them. Like whatever they agree to, we will check on that, make sure they stick to their part of the deal. Yeah.
Keep us posted.
Yes. Yeah.
Do the other demos get rid of those things? Like the demo companies? Because I know he did it privately, so I'm just wondering, like, he did it himself as opposed to the other properties where that had a demo company. Like, do they remove the whole septic tanks and gas lines and stuff?
Gas lines, I'm not sure whether there is any gas line or something, but regardless, I mean, we will take whatever step necessary. So I don't think we have to discuss detail more about that. But
Basically, you're gonna do a post-inspection to
Yes.
make sure it was done appropriately.
Yeah.
Whatever was not done appropriately, either we use the contract or whatever agreement was made with him,
Yeah.
that he needs to do what he said he would do, or we do the cleanup and make him pay for it if it's part of the agreement.
Yep.
Or if it wasn't part of the agreement and you find stuff, then we just fulfill what needs to be done in order to clean up that property.
Yeah. And that's same with like any other
Well, so what,
agreement we do with any other project, so.
do the previous demos include the removal of the septic system?
I don't think we have
Digging
done
out?
previous demos, like, I mean, I think the building are just sitting there and is a liability to the county. I think sooner, if we remove them, sooner the better. But, I mean, we also don't want to clean up like where we have to go back again and clean up again by the time project is implemented. I think that might be another reason why we have not utilized those funds to,
I don't remember us doing.
I mean, that's a big question.
yeah.
And once the surface stuff is all removed, then you lose track of where the septic system is. And then you get, like the Vineyard property, you get a bunch of stuff that's overgrown, and then you actually have to spend more money getting to the site.
I'm not
So-
sure that, I'm not sure that I remember us
And if there's,
doing demos.
That's
I
what
know-
that's why I asked.
I know we've done relocations, but I don't remember.
which in itself, a relocation would take everything and like.
Well, no, relocation is more, we're buying your house, so we're gonna help you get a house. That was the whole
Yeah.
relocation part.
So that house-
Oh, yeah, not the
phy-
property,
The
right.
physical property
Right.
remained as is, we
Right.
took it over, we just knew
But-
that.
So
The plans were to go through, like, do an RFP for a demo company that come in and they're specialized to do demolitions and remove all trace of the property, but this is, the other one was this private property doing it, or this private guy doing it, so that's, I'm just,
So the county hasn't done any contracting to them?
I feel like we have done demos in the past, we have records of
There
demos.
was- These ladies had a house, one of the first parcels we purchased, and their house was then demolished, yeah.
Right,
Yeah, so
Okay,
that's-
so-
right.
that's what I'm just wondering, is about the impact of septic,
Yeah.
because that's a
It
water
has-
quality,
it was
that's a
5 years ago.
hazmat,
It was
that's
about 5
something.
or 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we will proceed with like whatever seems appropriate for that. We do have funds for that. Like right now, we received a complaint about a property, so we will look into that and get it cleaned out.
I think in the long run, maybe not in the short run, but in the long run, what are the properties that needed to be demoed? That way we can, before we really move forward to getting water to snake around and fill in that area.
Oh, yeah.
What properties did we have to demo? What may have been missed, just in case. I mean, for all we know, somebody had a landfill, and dug it up in one area, because I swear every property I end up buying, I start digging somewhere and I'm like, why is a radio in the dirt right here? Why is there a plastic
No.
bag?
The number of batteries you find when you garden is like ridiculous.
It's insane. So I think that it just should be a part of our process before we finalize everything. Let's re-review what we took apart, to make sure that there's no surprises and bad impact to the environment as we keep moving forward. But
Yes.
please, do what you feel is the right process or what the Lake County's process is. But I think it's something we should re-review before, handing things over to the Army Corps.
Yes.
And then do we have any fire mitigation on these properties? Because I know the county has now the fire mitigation ordinance, but if we are not managing on our own properties, that's just a question, you can come back to the next meeting with that, because right now, there's not as much growth, but I don't know if we have a long-term maintenance of these properties.
We don't mow the grass in those properties.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I think we necessarily should at this moment. Let's back of the mind, not front of the mind.
Yeah.
Let's keep going on number 8.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on. So the next agenda we have is updates from Army Corps engineers. They're going to provide an update on the environmental impact statement. And we have Kim Donner, the environmental manager from the Sacramento office. So yeah, Kim, if you are there, you can probably.
Hey, good afternoon, folks. This is not Kim, this is Fernando Gonzalez, but Kim is in the room with me along with Bertie Smith. I will turn my camera on so you can see us all. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thank you. I'll also go ahead and share our slide.
I hope so.
Yes.
Is this coming up?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So at the top, I did hear a few things I wanted to address. I believe there was a conversation. I wasn't sure if I should interject, but I believe there was a conversation about lands reimbursement. So should the project go to construction, the Corps would reimburse the county for the lands that they acquired. So I wanted to clear that one up. And there was also, I believe, some discussion about tribal trust lands. The Corps generally does not get involved with so generally the Bureau of Affairs will consult and coordinate with the respective tribes who they have the trust lands with, and then the tribes will share a memorandum that consultation has taken place so that work can move forward. So that's my understanding of it. We can, if needed, we can set something up with our real estate folks at the district and our tribal liaison. But so yeah, just wanted to get addressed a couple things, and with that, I will kick it over to
Fernando,
my colleague. Go ahead. Yes.
I want to interrupt you real quick. Number one, appreciate seeing you here. I know that we had changes on leadership from the Army Corps partway through the reevaluation. It's not reevaluation. Revalidation study. I've been saying it wrong all day. Appreciate that you're still here on this project. Thank you so much. Number one, if I understood you correctly, you're saying that the local district will get refunded or reimbursed by the Army Corps upon completion of the project for the money spent for acquisition.
By the county.
By whoever the non-federal sponsor is will either get credit to their cost share, so it will either be credit to their cost share, and if it exceeds a certain amount, I believe there's also potential for cash reimbursement. I gotta check on that, but generally it's reimbursement towards the non-federal sponsor cost share.
No, I appreciate that knowledge, and obviously the details are to be found later on. And number two, as far as the tribal land or trust land, what I appreciate hearing you saying is you have a process in how to get things moving when a project is a combination of non-federal sponsor land that has been acquired and trust land that is within the project scope. I'm hearing you saying that you have a pathway and that it's a matter of just following those processes.
That the tribes
Yes.
have a issue.
Yep.
Great. That is great news.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right, I'm gonna kick it over to Kim. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Everybody, Kim Donner, environmental manager for the project. Basically, I'm a biologist and I am leading the NEPA effort for the project. So that's National Environmental Policy Act. Trying to get this. There it goes. So quick background, at least on our NEPA environmental documentation coverage. August 1999. We had a notice of intent for the project, which was published in the Federal Register, basically that says, hey, we're going to write an environmental impact statement. This is for the law that we have to do that kind of notice of intent. So October 2003, we had a revised final come out, and that included like 3 different documents in one. So that was our feasibility report, the environmental impact statement, so that's the NEPA portion, and environmental impact report, and so that's the CEQA, the state portion. And then in 2004, a chief's report was signed, and so that finished off the feasibility portion of that document. But we never had a record of decision signed, which would have completed that NEPA component of the project. I believe that there was a notice of determination published for the CEQA portion of it, though. But the project was authorized later in 2007 under Water Resources Development Act. So what we're working towards is to complete the validation study for the project. NEPA analysis is required. Because we never completed that NEPA documentation, that means that that requirement still needs to be met according to Army Corps guidelines. So we can't move forward with the validation study and get it completed without having that done first. So that's what I'm going to be working on. And so I'm drafting a notice of scoping that's being routed around internally to make sure that it's ready to go. And that should be posted to the Federal Register. I'm anticipating on doing that June 24th timeframe, but that depends on how the reviews go and how we do on scheduling the public meeting and all that fun stuff. So the scoping is to solicit for comments regarding the scope of the environmental impact statement from interested parties. So interested parties include the general public, of the people who live in the area, agencies, whether that's local, state, federal, all that good stuff, tribes, elected officials, and then the scoping period is to be 30 days. This allows people some time to review the information. It's just a quick few pages document. It's not super intensive, but in this case, people might want to look at the documentation. And the public meeting or meetings shall be held 15 days following the start of the scoping period. So it gives people some turnaround time between the start of that period and the finish of that period, so they have time to work around that and they're not feeling rushed on either end. Just to remind folks, the EIS will analyze an array of alternatives. This is the same alternatives that we had previously, with the exception of number 2 is going to not include that ring levee design. We can talk about that more later, but or at another time. But it's going to be the same alternatives that have been previously analyzed, and it's been number 2 in the past that has been determined to be the preferred alternative, basically. And that's the design that you see listed here, the design that we presented on before in various meetings. So here I have our anticipated schedule, and that's going June 24th. So that would end around August 5th, and we'd have a scoping meeting around July 9th. And then we would go through the draft writing process, starting immediately after that scoping process, go through November, do some internal reviews for the next several months, and then looking at having a public comment period for the draft, April through June, and having a public meeting at that time as well to go over what's included in the draft. And then do that whole process again, basically, of preparing the final based on any comments. Hopefully we don't get anything that's substantial enough to cause major changes. Review, and then because of the type of document that this is, it does have to go to the Army Corps HQ over in DC for approval and signature of that record of decision. So the current actions, what I'm immediately looking at doing and working on is preparing that notice of scoping that is around right now internally. And plans are being prepared to send out letters and host a meeting. So I have like a letter drafted that I could send to, that's a base letter that I could send out to agencies, elected officials, and all that good stuff. So they get official notice from us about the scoping period happening and when the meeting's going to happen, and inviting them to join in on that process with us. And so items that I need to help me assist with preparing for the letter and that for the public meeting would be interested party contact information, whether that's agencies or elected officials, etc. I sent that in an email to Pawan, and I also am looking for recommendations on how to outreach the community there. You guys are part of the community, you know this community, you probably do outreach all the time with them, so you guys would be the best knowledge, at least to start with, about how to do outreach with them, and recommendations for how to do the public meeting, whether in person or virtual or whatever avenue that is. And then we also probably should talk about the sequence duration that need to happen, because that could impact our schedule as well. Fernando, did you have anything to add?
No, I can make I'll just have a short follow-up after Kim is done with her slides.
All right, I'm done.
Okay.
There.
So we received some additional funding via a reprogramming request we made in the district to division to continue the NEPA. That's why we're able to start the NEPA process now as we receive that funding. So I will be sending out the Corps will be sending out a letter to request funding from the county. Most likely next month is when you should get it to balance the cost share.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know we're prepared for that, so that's good that we're ready for it. So I have, I guess, for me, it's somewhat the elephant in the room. I haven't heard about you guys through all of the chaos that's happening federally. And I know I spoke to our congressional representative in the importance of the U.S. Army Corps and the projects that you are doing here locally for us, that we continue to have the same level of support that I've been seeing, at least since we've re-energized and re-engaged, especially through the validation study. Do you guys have any inkling of things that may come that will create change federally, or are you as confused as we are, in the dark as we are, or, I mean, again, happy that you're here. That means you didn't say yes to the letter you received, but just kind of curious what your thoughts are, if you're allowed to share your thoughts.
Well, we're taking it day to day at the Corps, at least, with what we know and what may or may not happen. I can say that there is most likely going to be a reduction in force. What that looks like ultimately is unclear. But we might see impacts pretty much across the board with the Corps as far as ability to deliver the programs. So there's also a change in the priorities of the administration. There might not be as much of a willingness to do ecosystem restoration projects during this administration as much as there was during the last one. So ideally, we continue to get funding to move Middle Creek along, but there is a potential for a funding gap federally anyways. There hasn't been like all the team that's been Middle Creek is still here and they're not going anywhere. With a few exceptions, but their work is essentially done for the validation study. Yeah, I mean, like I said before, in when was it, February or January when I was last on the committee meeting, I'll be here until to see this through. I am going to be on leave through November, from May through November. Having another child and gonna take some time, but we'll find support to make sure that the items that I've been working on are still get worked on and that everybody has their what they need at the district.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that, and congratulations to you between May and November. Please enjoy that time. It's valuable, very valuable time spent. So you deserve that. Yeah. Looking forward to continuity within your agency and your team to continue the work that we're doing. And I wish that you knew more, but I also understand why you don't, because it's kind of random. If there's any options, and I guess, I don't know, maybe it's stupid for me to even mention it, but if there are options, if things do change in the direction that I anticipate may change, it'd be nice to know what you feel could be some of our best alternatives as to how to work and continue to move forward with this project, whether it's somewhere else within the federal government, whether it's within the state government, or any other alternatives that may be available that you've seen other communities utilize outside of the scope of the Army Corps. But I don't think we're there, but I know that I need to start thinking of what those options are, just because I don't want to be caught unknowing that things could just change.
No, absolutely. And I don't know where it is, but I'm in Korea in partnership with Havan Talal and I believe Scotts Valley. They had made a request for funding from EPA to do a portion of Middle Creek. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that. I think it's one of the sloughs, Cannon Slough.
Yeah, I think it's the property where the water will be coming right towards that property, and they need to figure out how to make sure it connects to the lake appropriately.
Right. So, I mean, I'm going to do what I can to keep requesting repositioning of different funding pools that are available to make sure that the validation study continues. I can't think of anything from the state that might be helpful. I'm not really in tune with the different kind of programs that the state has for ecosystem restoration. But yeah, I mean, we'll do our best for it going. I mean, I thought we were going to have to shut down last summer, and we're still going and going through the rest of the fiscal year. So maybe something else will come up that'll keep us moving.
I appreciate your response. Thank you very much.
Maybe we emphasize the flood control portion of the project for the next few years.
Yes, to reduce the emergencies.
Over the ecosystem restoration portion,
Sometimes you gotta pivot.
Wrap it in different type of paper.
Any other questions? And I'm sorry, I'm kind of pushing for us to move forward. Really appreciate the presentation. Looking forward to June 24th. And I'm sure that's something that we'll be highlighting when we meet during that time period between the June and August timeframes for us to make sure that we review that and submit our comments as well from this committee.
So I guess when we're following up about who to contact locally within Lake County and what avenues to explore as far as reaching the public, Pawan, would you be the point of contact for that? Is there maybe like a public affairs office that the county has, or but I guess we're looking to see what resources we should be communicating with to make sure that we're reaching everybody and getting their comments.
Yeah, I think especially like if we are talking about NEPA and CEQA type of documents, I think our community development department, they do this stuff. So if you reach out to me, I can put you in touch with them, and then they can inform us. And
then I would say, going through Pawan, we can easily identify you what media needs to be used, what social media needs to be used. Maybe our PIOs can help out in putting out press releases and letting people know. And I'm sure that we can probably, and I don't want to speak for Pawan, but I'm sure that we can help accommodate a town hall in the right region to attract a public meeting to get that kind of public comment as well.
We used to do that all the time. It should be very attainable.
And I would say,
great, thank you.
Go through Pawan, and we'll make sure you get what you need, and we'll provide assistance wherever assistance can be provided.
Great, no, I appreciate it.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. I appreciate both of you guys being here and providing the updates.
Thanks, Fernando.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you both.
Okay, so the next item we have is PG&E updates and next step. I don't have anything. I think last meeting we did discuss that we have to probably reach out to them. I think that's still the case.
I think that let's have a conversation outside of this
for
the $200,000 that we put to the side.
Yes.
Just to see where we are, and let's come back next time we meet to provide an update.
Okay.
the board has put aside to it.
It's assigned, yeah, it's in the budget. It's
Allocated.
waiting.
So the next one we have is the legislative update and next step.
I would say no updates at this point. As I stated with the Army Corps, spoke to Congressman Thompson about the importance of continuing to have the Army Corps and working on the Middle Creek. And maybe at one point we, EJ and I should maybe bring a letter working with Pawan to submit the support that we need continuously from the Army Corps for this project. And or maybe we just wait until there's some sort of something that comes up that tells us we should probably be putting out these letters. But at this moment in time, no update.
Okay. This is the same slide that from the last meeting, but I thought probably it's good to have it there just in case. And you can see on that, the very last one is the contingency, which is like 1.1.
And we just changed everything with our conversations today because it sounds like that's going to be flexible.
Yes, yeah. So, so I will reach out.
Contingency, I mean, that's what it means.
But at least it's defined, right?
But
The mechanism to access it.
Yeah, mechanism.
Yes.
That's it, but I think contingency is also like when you exhausted all other heads under that, but it seems the one which we have exhausted at this point is the acquisition cost, because you can see in that we have around 2 million left, but 4 properties cost about 3 million,
Yeah.
3.1.
We gotta figure that one out.
Yes.
That's good though.
Yeah.
Money being spent.
Yes.
That was.
Caltrans, I don't know, like, is it? Yeah. Okay. So public expression, so.
Just kidding.
Just
kidding, just kidding.
Do you have an update on your help, your extra help? Just because there's a lot of stuff that's on this project, it'd be good for you to get help.
Under which item you are talking?
I'm just public expression, I'm a member of the public.
She's the
today.
public.
Oh, okay, I see.
She's public.
I think we did had one application in. I have to still look through. I didn't thought that is the best fit kind of situation, but I'm still exploring that thing.
I thought
And
there were 3 applicants.
Not for this one.
Oh,
Only one for this. And that position is still open, so it's open until filled. So if we keep getting somebody else, then we can.
But I thought there were 3 for someone, a part-time, someone
There were,
dedicated.
at one point, you had somebody that had languages and then somebody else that wasn't a good fit. I thought that like 3 at some point, but,
Okay.
Yeah.
because that was open before the other 2 positions
Right.
were open.
And real quick, for public expression, we need to put it on the agenda if we want to have further conversation.
Yeah.
There was a response to the public comment. I want to check in and make sure, those of you who are online, we can't see you right now. If you have a public expression, just shout it out. All right, non-timed items. We already spoke to 14.1.
Yeah.
So we're just going to move on past that and call it good?
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
14.2, next steps for water rights application for Middle Creek project.
Yeah, so this is another thing which the water board, the state water board, water resources would want the county to take action on. I think they've been requesting, because county did file like a water right application for the as part of this project long back, like 20 years back or so. But we have not done anything about it, obviously, because the project has not been implemented. So they do want to take some action, whether we are showing we need this water right and is in
Who are
good
they?
standing, is the water board, the state water board.
State water board.
Rights division.
So they have like a specific action, like saying, doing water availability analysis, and there are a couple of things, like they're going to send us a letter of saying that we need to do something about our water right application. If we not do anything, they're going to cancel the application.
Yeah.
I thought all the water down to a certain depth was owned by,
But this would be new water in the area of the Middle Creek project specifically. And I know, I want to say the original concept of what was probably submitted to the water board is probably from Anthony Farrington's time, where he and Yolo County Flood Control were butting heads because he wanted to claim the entirety of that 1,600 acres to be Lake County's water.
And to offset the municipal, what the municipalities around the lake pay to Yolo County. And then there'd be some money changing between the district and those purveyors. Yolo County is interested in going into an MOU because they have a protest against this water right. So they won't let the water right application be fulfilled because they have a protest against it because they believe it's they're within their water right. So, but they are interested in writing an MOU with the district.
And I think we
To
opened
kind
up
of-
conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think
We're
last
waiting for
time we
that.
did discuss saying probably it should be the board's decision, like coming from the board saying whether we want to.
So the board does have 2 members on the Yolo County Flood Control Board. It's 2x2, I think is what it's called. I could be wrong.
Who are they?
I want to say it's EJ and I.
Okay,
But you're not sure.
I'll double check because it could have changed. I know I was at one point, which only makes sense for where the dam is, which,
Yeah.
let me just check. I'll tell you guys in 2 seconds. We can easily move on to the next items. 'Cause I think we need to engage. But I think we do need to engage through the Board of Supervisors lens, not through this lens.
yes.
Because the water rights, while directly having something to do with Middle Creek restoration, the goal here is to finish the project, not provide leverage or greater water rights to the
Yeah, it's for
county
wetlands,
itself.
yeah.
Yeah.
Then I think we have another request from somebody
No,
who wants to use the acquired parcel for some cultivation. So I don't know what the committee has any thoughts about it, like how do we approach it, or like how
So
do
this-
we want to
Is
use?
it cultivation for?
this sounds like cannabis cultivation?
No, I
Okay.
think it's for some fruit or something like watermelons or something, like if somebody wants to grow there.
They
Because
should-
it's,
Yeah, is there a project, they should come to a future meeting with a project description and where it is, like right now we have.
Like how much
information.
fertilizer they're gonna be putting in.
Or what
no,
is it
it would be
actually-
organic, like nothing like other than what exists there. But the question for the committee would be, we can check into further detail about making sure that it's okay. But what I want the committee to give a direction on saying, are we open to anything like that? Like where we are allowing somebody to use the parcel which we have acquired for something other than the project itself.
I mean, we had leases
Or-
before on properties with folks, but it was a lease agreement, so there was some lease payment. There was some
Yeah, the
agreements
rice.
within there, yeah. But that land was set up for rice before, so it was kind of just like a continuing, so it really, the details, I would say no, the precedent should be that land should be used for other things, but it's up to you guys to say.
And then I think
If
there
you want more
is,
information before that decision's made.
there is some for the grazing as well, which I think is a good idea because otherwise it's gonna keep growing and growing
Yeah.
wild, so.
Grazing may,
It's-
and maybe you could argue cultivation as well, is that it would keep fire danger down.
Yeah, if it's fire, there's maintenance. The grazing, it depends where it is, if there's any floodwaters or anything around there. That's
Yeah, I
a
think-
discharge.
I think that we get a proposal.
Yep.
And see what the impact would be to this committee, and that this committee respond to the Board of Supervisors saying, we feel this should be allowed or shouldn't be allowed. But I do agree that it needs to be maybe on, that there should be a criteria to meet, because, I mean, in the long run, do we have 10 years until this happens? Do we want the land not to be utilized? Do we want to be the only people to maintain and deal with that land? Or do we want to make money off that land while we wait for this project to move forward? But I surely don't want something to be in the way of the project or create further hassles within the project. So I think it's a sensitive subject, but
It deserves a management plan for the parcels the county owns, just like we have for all other county. Like, how do we manage Highland Springs? How do we manage parks? We should have some plan that decides, like, what uses can be used on there.
Yeah.
How are we doing fire mitigation? Who operates the pumps when there's floods? How are we doing mosquito abatement? Like, those all things should be part of a property management plan for all of those. And I don't know if that could be included in the cost for maintenance, that's under the grant, if we can hire somebody to help write together the RCD or someone
a
else.
maintenance plan?
To do a maintenance plan, that seems to me, you should have a plan to tell you how to do maintenance in order for them to do maintenance, how much it's gonna cost, who are you gonna get to do that? Because right now you have wildlands out there and there's nothing
Yeah.
being done on it, and that's.
So I will say like probably for the whole, like all the parcel we have acquired, there won't be like a uniform kind of plan, but like an approach, like if somebody comes up with some proposal, we can consider it whether we want to let it do or not, because it, like if somebody is doing something to on the property, probably it's not like a fire hazard or some other kind of issues coming down the line. So we do have some benefit to that at no cost to us, but it depends from case to case.
So what I'd like to do is bring this back, but not as a community member request, but as a property management
Yeah.
during the time that we are in control of that property and the project is on hold until it goes forward. So let's put that on for the next
Okay.
meeting for us to discuss how to move forward with that.
Okay, makes
I
sense.
like that.
And
Yeah.
so, now we're on to next meeting scheduled is Monday, June 2nd, 10:30 a.m., back in this exact same spot.
Are we ever going, this would
Upper
have
Lake?
been a good month, be it up in Upper Lake, given the parking situation. I'm just curious, are we ever going back, or was that a one-off?
I mean, we did a one-off, we found, not that it was difficult, I think the Habematol is very open for us to utilize that building. I think that staff is right here, everything is accessible right here. We didn't see an influx of public members that don't show up here. We're online, we're accessible. So at this moment in time, I don't believe we have anticipation to be anywhere else other than here. And hopefully
Will the parking lot
the
be
parking
done?
should be resolved
Yeah.
by June.
Yeah, that's what I
Sure.
was saying.
Okay, I'll see how much my ticket is today.
June 2nd.
And if there's nothing
Oh.
further,
Yeah, actually the parking tickets has been canceled. You can park longer than 2 hours.
Okay, we'll
Yes.
see.
Yeah, they said they're not gonna issue tickets
Okay.
during because they know people are parking all over. And I've never gotten a ticket here, I parked on the street.
for hours. Just
Long,
kidding,
yeah.
just kidding.
I never got a ticket.
Yeah, okay, I guess, so I think we will conclude this meeting. So everything has been covered.
Yay.
And we'll meet on June 2nd. Thank you everyone joining us online.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.